Good evening, Dennis.
Hello, Eric.
How are you doing tonight?
Well, let's just start out by saying, in many respects, I'm doing better, but at the end of the day, I'm okay, in spite of it.
Well, I mean, better than what? Better than yesterday, Dennis?
Better than when I was rushed to the emergency room.
That sounds like a bait for a story. Could you please tell me about?
This isn't a story. This is my life. So, so listen,
When was this?
2 nights ago.
Oh shit.
So, yeah, so I was with my kids, went out, had a beer, and was with my daughter and talking in the living room. And then she left, and I was going to watch the news. And as usual, the chair I sit in was an issue because it's sitting in the room in a place I don't like it. So I always have to move it. So I was going to do the permanent solution, which was to move it in a different spot more or less permanently. But in order to do that, I had to move a lamp.
Oh.
And I moved the lamp, moved the chair, and then for reasons that are bizarre and another story, I moved the lamp back. And when I moved it back, which was my near fatal error, I juggled the bottom of the lamp with my left hand and looked down to move the lamp so I didn't bump it into the wall.
Uh-huh.
And the globe on top of the lamp
Oh
that
no.
protected the light bulb fell off, landed square on my head, cut in half. One of the sharp halves spun in the air and landed on my wrist and sliced open my wrist,
Holy
a
shit.
4-inch gash right near the bone into the tendon.
Oh my god.
And I was gushing blood. And do you remember the movie? You'll have to show the clip here in a second. Wherefore art thou? George Clooney's character,
Yes.
time and time again, he was in trouble. He looked startled and he looked up and he said, "We're in a tight spot." Well, I didn't say that with the gushing blood.
Should
What
have.
I said instead was, "This isn't good. This isn't good. Help, help." And I yelled and my kids were downstairs.
Yeah.
No, Kaylee came up, blood squirting, and I'm holding it. We rushed into the kitchen and I said, "Tourniquet." My daughter grabbed a cloth. I twisted it in my hand and said, "Let's go.
Nice.
Take me to the hospital." Her car had just driven in, snow, clear of snow,
Yep.
and warmed up.
Yep.
She just had arrived and took me to the hospital. From the point of accident to the point of emergency room was 6 minutes.
Holy
And
shit.
I didn't lose much blood. I never got faint. So they did some of the more painful examinations I've ever had. When you have a wound that hurts and somebody decides they have to go in there with what feels like a shovel and a pitchfork
Yep.
before the painkiller, that's one. And then the painkiller itself, they shoot a needle into your open wound.
Right.
And that needle into your open wound is excruciating. And the doctor who did it looked at me and he said, "Consider this a pain investment." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah."
What?
Meaning a little bit of pain now and you're going to avoid a whole lot of pain.
Right.
So they numbed it all so that it was at one point during this emergency operation, which of course I was wide awake for, and also in a state that had gone from post-work beer to
Right.
this, and then now it's numb and it doesn't hurt anymore.
Right.
So I was ramped up, but I was somewhat loquacious, I'm told.
You're just chatting with the
Just
surgeon.
chatted because I didn't want to look
Right.
at what he was doing. He had it splayed open. It looked like goddamn Gang of Thrones,
God.
like splaying. It's the torture.
She's like asking
was
him about his
awful.
kids and shit while he's digging in your arm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, not the doctor.
Right.
The attendants.
All right.
3 people in the room. We talked basketball. Found a state fan, dressed in green and white, nurses stuff.
Right. Right.
So that took up a while. That
Oh.
was fun. So then they repaired my tendons, tied them up, stitched them up, stitched me up, put on this plastic splints here,
Yeah.
which have my wrist turned an odd way so that where the tendons are, it's curved down so that they can heal better
Uh huh.
instead of stretched up. Because the tendons that were cut were the ones that do this
Right.
up and down motion of my wrist.
Right. Right. Right.
Not
Huh.
waving like the Queen of England,
No.
but waving like an American citizen.
Yes.
Hello, goodbye. That's so when I'm laid out on the table, check this. I'm laid out, I'm all numbed. They turned the room I was in into an operating room, went sterile. I helped once to fix the sterile stuff. They had to start all over again. New gown, everything. They said, don't help again. I reached over because they was having trouble putting the sterile cloth over my shoulder. Nice guy that I am.
Right. Like, here, let me help you with that. No, you ruined it all.
Yep. All right, let's start over. Everybody, 4 people, tearing down the whole room.
Jesus.
And I said, well, I won't be doing that again. And he said, no, Miss Doctor.
No, you won't.
And anyway, I looked over and he was done. He had tied the bad tendon that was hurt to a good tendon and put a notch in it, a stitch, protected it. And then there was another tendon that is a useless tendon that 85% of the population has that isn't used anymore. And they use it for a body part to move to another place in the body if they ever need a tendon.
Cool. It's like
it has that. That's pretty cool. That was destroyed.
Like a spare tire.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
A spare tendon. Right.
So someone rear-ended you and you broke your spare tire.
So while he was in there, I could have opened up Den's spare tendon as a shop, like Ed's.
Right.
Like Ed's tires.
I mean, if you ever get
I only had
if you ever get
I
low
had
on
one ready to sell.
if you ever get low on cash, maybe the one in your other hand could be auctioned on the black market, on the tendon market.
Professional gold mine, mining your own tendons.
So
anyway,
I'm concerned with your carpet and furniture that got blood all sprayed all over it. Did it look like Dexter had killed somebody in there?
Blood wasn't spraying. It was oozing. It was oozing like a red fountain of blood, and that's why I looked at it. Now I was dazed.
Did you leave a trail of drip all the way to the kitchen?
But I had immediately held the wrist between the wrist and the heart to slow the blood flow with my good hand, rather than covering it, knowing I'd have to pull that off there to put a tourniquet on it. So I ran right to that. But at any rate, it was fast and furious.
Clever.
And so we're on the table, and I'm all stunned in the arm. I'm talking criminal justice and this and that. And
you
listen. Blah, 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 blah. And he says, okay.
Why were we not recording that?
I want you to move this wrist. And I looked over at it for the first time in a long time, and it was splayed open. And I said, what do you want me to do? And he said, do this, and gave me the come on motion, the flex motion. And I said, that's not my wrist.
Exactly. I was going to say that's what people do when that happens.
Not my wrist. Yeah. I said, and it was gray in color because they had put a cuff on me to slow the blood flow. So it was pale. It was whitish, not blue.
Right.
Although that tourniquet was as long, and it was more painful than the surgery, especially after 25 minutes. And then they gave me a break. Wow. But at any rate, so I moved it, and it felt more like my brain was the puppet master with a string through my hand,
and you were controlling some other.
And I was willing it.
Somebody else's object.
So the doctor says, "How does that feel?" And I said, "How does it feel? I can't feel it. It's not my arm." And he says, in all seriousness, he says, "Yes, that's a common feeling."
Yeah, of course.
So I don't know. It's doped up. Thank God. I'm stunned. He sewed me up. Last stitch was a little off, but all in all, he's a fabulous doctor.
What sort of recovery outlook do you have?
6 weeks. 6 weeks, and of course I'm moving my house, so I guess the moving project and the carpentry projects and the concrete line projects and the house reconstruction that I had lined up, starting in 3 weeks, ain't going to happen.
A delay, right?
The good news is that I had a weird time frame with my future here where I had made with Nikki and her sister Mindy a 2-week vacation in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sold our house, and we have to do the work of the sale of the house and the renovation with that vacation in place. So I'm only home a week owning the house. Then we're 2 weeks out. So now, what a blessing that is, because I won't be able to swing a hammer, or I can swing a hammer with my right hand, of course, but I've only got...
You won't be able to hold the nail.
I'll be gone anyway. So I planned for being gone.
Mm-hmm.
Little did I know I'd be recuperating. But by then I should be recuperating. I've had worse pain, I think. I can't remember when. I never want to have it again. But the professionalism of the healthcare staff at Bronson Hospital here was unbelievable. My daughter was with me the whole time. My wife came later. So all in all, I'm glad to have say to you, as you asked, how are you, Dennis? And I said, well,
Better than I was 2 days ago.
But I'm okay because here's to you.
Yes.
So all is well today. And then I'm doctor's appointment on Thursday.
Good.
That's what's been going on.
I have not been to the emergency room this week.
That's good.
I went to IKEA, which is also stressful.
Did you buy stuff?
Yeah, we needed a bookcase. And IKEA sells these bookcases for 40 euros. Like, for 45 bucks, you can get a beautiful, nice bookcase that's perfectly functional. So it's dirt cheap, and they're easy to put together. And we needed some extra storage in my kids' room. So I was sent off to IKEA to buy this thing, and it just barely fit in the car, and then I brought it home and put it together. And it's for people like me that don't normally work with their hands or build things, IKEA can be strangely satisfying because it feels like I built this, and all you're doing is really putting tab A into slot B, and turning some screws. So
I've been there. I know I put together a little plastic shopping cart for a little grandbaby George, and so she could push it around. It was 3 pieces.
Right.
I had the instructions laid out. I had all the parts. I had it all laid out as the OCD would.
Right.
And then I followed the instructions and I put it together. And when I was done, I cheered. It was the part of my day that I controlled.
Right.
Everything else was, I'm in the river of life. But here with those instructions, and I did it right.
And that's one of the clever things about IKEA is the instructions, there's no words. It's all pictograms so that they can print out the same piece of instruction and send it all over the world. But there's this interesting psychological phenomenon called the IKEA effect. And this is that you like things that you feel some ownership of having put together more than stuff that you just bought. So, like, they took some undergrad students into a psych test, and they gave them either a Lego kit that was to build a thing, or they just showed them a thing that was pre-built already, and they asked them, do you like this thing? And they're like, yeah, it's pretty cool. And then they said, well, how much would you pay to take it home right now with you? And the people that had put in a little bit of effort into following some simple instructions to put the thing together were willing to pay a lot more money, because there's this thing, you feel this ownership and this, like, I did this, your cheering moment.
Well, I joined a club. Did you?
You joined a club?
The IKEA Addiction Club, IKEA Addiction Association, AAA.
No. What? Huh?
It's established to treat the IKEA effect. AAA. You should join.
AA. Working on it. Let me hang in here. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Well, move on then. What's your next question? What was your first one? Hey, how are you? That took us 15 minutes.
Well, that's the way it's supposed to.
Now I'm apparently confused, and I've confused you. You have to edit all that out.
Yeah, so do you have after this ER experience, do you have a better appreciation, like in movies and stuff, where somebody has to go and have a bullet pulled out of them with no anesthetic?
Well, the funny you should say it, because my daughter Kaylee said when we were driving to the emergency room, and I was shocky and talking a mile a minute, and she was in control, and we drove and we talked, and I said, "Who's going to believe this?" Lamp falls off my head, cracks open, splits over, blah, 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 blah. Give me the hospital, right? We get there. But she was laughing because I was making her laugh,
right,
in spite of it all. And she said, "My God," she said, "this is like an opening for a episode of 6 Feet Under."
Right.
And I said, "Oh my God, you think I'm going to die?" Don't suggest that. And she laughed about that, and of course. And then later, I explained to the X-ray technician, that she didn't have the best tableside manner because she said this was a perfect beginning for an episode of 6 Feet Under. And he says, looks at me, and he says, "No, not 6 feet under."
Oh no.
There I am laying there. Yeah, it's funny. These things, and I felt bad for a couple of days thinking, why me? But I'm thinking, boy, if it would have landed on my hand or landed across my fingers
Sure.
or landed higher up on my major artery up in my
Right.
elbow,
Mm-hmm.
or what, or landed on my foot and got all my fucking toes off.
Right.
It looked like a chainsaw had hit this thing.
Wow.
It looked like Night of the Dead shit. I mean, it was just oozing. So
What a stupid way to die that would be.
well,
You know.
well,
Say,
thank you. I think
He was moving. He was moving the lamp because he wanted his chair in a different part of the room.
So, lesson learned: don't move the lamp with a globe without checking the globe. Later, when I was in the operating room, I remembered wondering, as time passed, whether I had put the screw in there to hold that lamp.
Right.
And I was convinced I didn't, and that's why it fell out. But that's not what happened. When I looked at the lamp upon returning from home from the emergency room,
Yes.
I limped in there. I was tired and weak and what, and I felt terrible. And,
Was
in
some
the lamp,
was some
screws were in the lamp. The globe had the screws in it, but they were loose, or somebody had loosened them.
I was gonna say, I think you might have been someone tried to murder you by loosening a lamp and then being sure that you were going to want to move that lamp
and bust the globe
thing
on my head, so that the sharp half-shard razor weapon-like piece of glass would land perfectly across my wrist.
I think we need to
like a freaking chainsaw.
I think we need to dust it for prints and stuff. I mean, get a little CSI forensic up in here, because somebody wants you gone.
Oh.
Well.
No.
Or it was just a freak accident. That is a lovely brass buck. Wait, does the buck stop on your desk, Dennis?
The buck stops here. Well, in this case, the buck stopped here. I don't know if that
It might keep going somewhere.
means anything else. I also have a...
What is that made of? That armadillo?
This is super hard molding plastic.
Why do you have a plastic armadillo?
Because I like that. Look at that.
Do you fondle it when you're thinking about things at your desk?
No, I've never shown them to anyone. In fact, I thought it was a special occasion, but you're ruining it with your poor sense of humor. Look at this.
It's a great sound effect for that elephant.
Elephant.
Yes.
Well, so here we are. It's after hours. So you with the IKEA shelf, me with the emergency room. I will tell you that the work continued at our house. And we built shelves this weekend. We deconstructed shelves while you were building them. So how about that?
Wow, yin and yang. Well,
deconstruct, reconstruct.
Oh, you know what else? I introduced my kids to the movie Big.
Oh, what a great movie! One of my favorites.
Yeah, I always liked it when I was a kid. It was released when I was 10, and it was one of these things that was on HBO all the time. So whenever you're looking for something to watch, it's there. And it had been years and years since I'd seen it, but it holds up. It's pretty decent. It's better than a lot of the you switch bodies with your parent movies there were a whole bunch of those in the 80s.
Which was a whole genre in and of itself.
Yeah.
Copied so many times by everybody.
Yeah. And
I agree.
But the problem with all those, especially with the switching bodies with your parent, that as a kid, of course, I was oblivious to, but it gets really awkward around sex. Like in Big, his girlfriend takes off her blouse and then it sort of fades to black. Which, as a kid, it was just like, oh well, that happened. But as a grown up, you understand the movie making language that that means that they continued. Uh,
Yes.
but and then it's like that's pretty weird that this 13-year-old and a 30-year-old's body was doing some crazy stuff. But it's not nearly as crazy as the uh,
Right.
as
Right.
the when you switch bodies with your father, for example,
Parents.
and then your mother is like time for bed. That's messed up.
Yeah. Nobody wants to go there.
Exactly.
Nobody, well, maybe some do.
No, no. Well, you got your edible people out there, uh, but yeah. So those movies always really tread lightly on that stuff, or the parent is divorced or something. Anyway,
Yeah.
but that's such a good movie. You know Tom Hanks's charisma just carries
Oh, it's
the whole
amazing.
thing.
And it actually, I would say, is the one of the top three movies I've watched again and again and again and again,
Yeah,
along with my favorite, of course, Moonstruck, which you probably still haven't seen. You're the last person in Europe who hasn't seen that, I think.
I think so. Yes.
But at any rate, Big
Yep.
is another one. In fact, I saw a movie the other day. I'll think about it in a moment. But it had a playback of that movie. It was the new comedian, the woman comedian, and it was a movie called Pretty. I Feel Pretty.
Okay.
And she felt unattractive because she was a big boned woman, as my mother would say. But she not, but bonked her head and woke up and had a when she saw herself, she was pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting. I don't know that I watched the whole thing, but uh,
And the movie Big was in there somehow.
yeah, she wished
Right.
she was watching that movie,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
he had the coin, and he put
Right.
it into the machine,
Zoltar.
and it
Yep.
told him, grant his wish is grant your wish is granted.
Yep.
Your grant is wished. The a different thing altogether. Your wish is granted,
Yeah.
and
I
that
don't.
inspired her to go to the fountain
And make a wish.
and coin it, and it didn't happen. But not to tell too much of the story, then she hit her head,
Uh,
and she at least saw herself that way,
hmm.
and it was an interesting movie. Um,
Yeah. That I remember as a kid. That Zoltar machine was
oh
pretty
yeah, yeah,
scary.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
The music score around that
yeah.
section, it gets
It
pretty
was.
scary.
I couldn't point to anything in the movie that I thought could have been better in any way. I thought it was. I can't. It's almost like a perfect movie to me. Same is true about Moonstruck. Every single moment of it is just perfect. I
Yep.
mean, it's the same with that movie too. Particularly the kid, the kid who plays his best friend
Hmm.
and
He does such a good
his
job there.
amazing stint. Uh, he must have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor that year. We should check that out. See how
No.
Big laid out because it was a unique role.
Yeah. I I I think while I was watching it, I looked him up, and he hasn't really done much since then. I mean, he does small parts, but when on his IMDb page, it says he's known for his part in Big. But and the other interesting question that it brought up was how you know and the the Tom Hanks character had an improbably lucky thing where immediately within a week he falls into a really high paying job in New York City, um,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and Lord knows the apartment that he rents would be like $10,000 a month, uh, but um, it's neat how he falls into that role like towards the very end. He's like, look, Billy, I can't talk about this. I've got deadlines. I got this report I got to turn. We're doing this presentation, and just that whole understanding of what adult stress is like, uh,
Uh-huh,
and
uh-huh, uh-huh.
and how it's not as cool as just riding your bike around and playing
Right,
stickball in the park.
right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, those days growing up. I told you the story about burning up the field,
Yeah.
in our neighborhood, my brother Mike and I anyway, but right on the edge of our property where we lived and we grew up, this electric company had left all their logs piled up for their log telephone poles.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pile of them. There were 40, 50 of them all, they weren't moving anymore. They weren't rolling. They were stable.
Right.
So we used to play on them, play tag, run around on them.
Yep.
And a guy who was 16 years old when I was 12, he masterminded and built in the middle of those logs a shack, a little building, a little shack.
Like a log,
that had,
like a log cabin?
It's just, yeah, it had log cabin aspects. He used, yes, right,
logs.
exactly.
Yeah.
And logs. And it had a door that lowered like over a moat.
Nice.
So you couldn't
like
get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just a
another
shack.
password or something?
Wayne Van Wy. He was the mastermind. He was the, but he had built, as we were growing up, different shacks like that in different places.
Right.
And one year when we were sitting around the baseball field, right, after a game, and the whole neighborhood was there, enough to, it was like 10, 14 kids if everybody was there, all ages. He, since he was the oldest one, he mowed the field and whatnot when I was 12 to get the field mowed. But we're all sitting around, and he says, so I built a shack, a hidden fort.
A hidden, yeah.
And
a kid would have called it a fort.
And you need to find it, and when you find it, you can have it.
Cool.
But first you have to find it.
What a mystery.
And we searched high and low. I found it. I was the one who found it. And what he had done, and what I found first was in a copse of pine trees, I found fresh dirt.
Ooh.
Pile of, and I traced
something
where
was
the steps
buried.
went. No, it was dirt that was moved there.
All right.
So I traced the steps back to a tree where a rodent, muskrat or whatever, near the edge of the bank, groundhog, had dug in the root of a tree in a sandy bank where the tree trunk created this massive opportunity that when you dug under the tree trunk, under the sand, he created a room in there.
Cool.
With places to sit, places for candle holders. You could hold 4 or 5 people in here, and the ceiling was the roots and the earth.
Yeah.
And he had dug out the sand, started by the groundhog,
Right.
and I had located where the dirt was and went backwards. He had taken the hole in between the roots of the tree, and he had removed all the dirt.
Yeah.
Not a trace of it. Put a burlap sack over the hole, and then put some down branches with leaves on them over the burlap.
That is
and
the
that's
coolest.
where it was hid.
When you're 12, that's the coolest thing ever.
It was, and he gave it to us. We went in there. Everybody was invited.
Yeah, I mean, clearly what he loved was the creation and the ideation of these.
What a marvelous man, a young man, to do that. So there's another part of the story.
Well, I was going to say, did you have a club of, did you have club meetings down there?
It didn't last long
Because of politics?
Because apparently my older brother Joe had a run-in with my friend Dougie, brother Jimmy. So me and Dougie were friends, and our older brothers, Jimmy and Joey, had a run-in of one kind or another. And I can't remember what it was about. Maybe I'll remember as I'm telling the story. But as a result,
someone destroyed
when Joe, my brother Joe, was with us in the fort, in the underground fort, not having been in the crew that found it, he was invited to come up and thought it was way cool. But he brought his altercation with Jimmy with him unbeknowingly, and Jimmy was up on top of the underground fort with us in it, pounding on it to cave it in, and he had in his hands
and bury you all alive
green fishing net that he was ripping up into pieces and screaming about, which apparently was about some incident with Joey and Jimmy about fishing gear or something that had happened while we were looking and found the fort. So Jimmy on a rampage trying to kill Joe,
right?
And we're in there. The dirt's starting to fall. It's
that's scary.
He's pounding. We all crawl out one at a time like groundhogs out of this thing and tumble into the grass. And he continues his rampage until he caves the whole fucking thing in. And then for all those years, 12, 13, 14, I'd go there in that hole ended up filling up with water.
Right, as holes do.
And I went back for a few years anyway and looked at it and fondly remembered my youth.
Mm-hmm. So how long was it a cool play space before
Uh,
emotions destroyed it?
Hours,
No.
day, hours, yeah, hours, days at most, a day at most. It wasn't like weekends. I
Be-
think we went in, we found it, we went home. Maybe it was that same day we went back, but it wasn't much. It was
because
short lived.
because
It was short lived.
it took at least a week or two to construct.
So there was a fight up above as a result of the thumping and the caving in, right?
Yeah.
And guess who was wrestling with Jimmy? Not Joey, who escaped, without being suffocated in the dirt with his life,
Right.
but Wayne. Wayne Van Wy was scuffling with Jimmy.
Yeah.
And then they had a major fight. And we ran home, particularly Joe with his freaking tail between his fucking legs.
Hmm.
What I don't know I'd have to ask him about the fishing net. I'll have to remember to ask him what the fuck was that all about?
Man.
Does he remember?
This is really sad what I'm about to say, but this is very similar to what my kids get up to in this video game called Minecraft. Have you heard of Minecraft?
No.
Minecraft is this incredible phenomenon. It grew incredibly and was purchased by Microsoft a couple years ago. But it's this it's this blocky world that you look at and you think those are graphics from 1985. That it's just terrible graphics. But what it is it's a world that you can walk around in, and also there are ways where you can like fly around. But you can hit any block a couple times, and then you now have in your inventory that whatever that material was, and then you can go and you can put that material in any other way in this block, like graph paper sort of structure. And so people that are willing to spend the time can build anything you can imagine can be built in this game. And so people build these elaborate castles and hideouts and things. And one of the modes is called a survival mode, which the first time I played it was pretty scary because you're just walking around and you're figuring out that you can take this piece of wood and build a little wall over here, and then the sun goes down and it's nighttime and these zombie creatures come out and they come and they will beat you until you die, and then you have to start again. But so the first as a newbie player, the first thing you do after that happens is you're very nervous. You're like, okay, shit, we need to build a wall. I need some place where I can at least spend the night to avoid getting killed by these scary
Zombies.
things, by these zombies. And so you start digging, because you can build a wall out of literally anything.
Right.
So you
So
dig
you
up a
go
bunch of
from
dirt.
gathering to defense.
Right, exactly. And then and then the night comes, and as a new player, you're like, I don't know what to do. You build a little wall. It could literally be the size of whatever your character is around you to keep the zombies away from you. And then when the light comes up, the zombies all like burn and die and stuff. But anyway, so my kids are totally fascinated with the building caverns and secret hidden doors and things, because there's all these different modifications that can be done, and once you learn how to do different things, you can just let your imagination take you, which is, on the one hand, as a parent, you're like, do I want my kid playing with his tablet for 5 hours a day? And no, you don't. But on the other hand, they're being creative and building things in a 3D world, which is where future stuff is going to be built is in a computer, like it is already, and then printed out by machines.
Right.
So
Well, all things in moderation, right? I mean,
yeah. So I have a pet peeve about that saying.
you do.
Yes, and
What is it? What did I say?
all things in moderation. So what's the definition of moderation? It's
That's
not
up to you, man.
It's not too little.
I can't get inside your head, man.
No, hold
It's
on.
up to you, man.
It's not too little or not too much. So
That's right.
So
It's
like Goldilocks. Yes.
You're the middle bear. You're
So-
the medium-sized bear. and it'll be okay. You just make your own choice. No one can help you.
So, but like obviously too little is bad, and obviously too much is bad. So it's sort of a meaningless thing to say moderation is
So
good.
you would rather I said, well, it
No,
almost goes without saying, but all things in moderation. Then you would say, well, that's better, right? So it'd
no,
be longer,
no.
but
It's just
might
a
meet your what I would have to consider a standard proof of concept
right.
of a saying, but that would be the modifier that you would live with. Then it almost goes without saying that. To which you would say, actually, it does go without
Yeah,
saying.
of
That
course,
would be
yes.
right. You know,
I mean, it's a bit. It's a little bit like saying good things are good. It's like
good things. You know what? Say it this way. You know what? Good things are just well, they're good, right?
yes. I think we
Right?
can all
You
agree with
disagree
that.
with that?
That's a
So
good.
you you don't want to pick that apart with your ultra sensitive sense of standard of sayings, what other people just let slide. You say, "Excuse me, but I have a problem with that phrase." And the guy's like, "Hey, dude, it's just something people say, man."
It's
And
like
you're like, "Well, actually, the assumption is incorrect."
I mean,
I don't know, man.
I mean, six of one really is a half dozen of the other. So
Well,
mathematically,
yeah, well, maybe it's a difference without a distinction.
but
But
now
to me,
if it
but
was
to me,
if it was a half baker's dozen, that'd be different. That the math works out differently there.
there been a number that's played a lot in your life, particular number.
No.
That's weird. You're the only person on Earth, and you've never seen Moonstruck.
Yeah.
You're like
You
one of a fucking kind.
you've
You don't
nailed
have a.
you've nailed me in the Venn diagram of people
It's not a real complicated Venn diagram. It's only got two branches.
people that saw people that have not seen
Yes,
Moonstruck.
yes, and no, and you just two no's for you.
All right, so cough up your number. Now that you're saying that you have everyone has a number that's important in their life.
22. 22.
22. Okay.
My wife's birthday is February 22nd.
Yes.
Need I say more?
Oh, that's adorable.
Probably.
That's
Oh.
adorable. The,
Uh, oh.
the day that
And
the day that my angel was.
and we're like 22. Well, all right. Well, that's a number.
Yeah.
It's also
Looks like two little ducks when you write
two
it.
little. I'm not ready for the ducks. I have a giraffe. I haven't showed you that.
Ooh,
Look at this.
that's a long neck. So it's like an African safari on your desk.
It is. It's a menagerie. I want to fly like an eagle, to be free. Fly like an eagle, let the spirit carry me. I want to fly like an eagle.
Good, good. Oh God. Tell me you have two more. That was a monkey with his hands over his eyes. And of course, that always comes with a monkey with his hands over his mouth. And that's very nice. And just like listeners of this podcast,
Both of you. You should hang up now because
a
you
monkey.
can't see what he's describing. And it's just a little monkey
Oh, yeah. What's he doing with his hands, Dennis?
over his eyes,
No.
ears
There you go.
over his ears. Thus, the analogy of our two listeners.
Yes.
Why would anybody want to listen to this dribble?
Hear no
Here's
podcast.
to them,
See no
both.
podcast. Do no podcast. Speak no podcast.
Killian, what are you drinking tonight? Scotch straight up? Neat.
Yes.
I got me a Killian's red, Irish red. Here's to you.
In a little shot glass that I got from the Glenlivet distillery in Scotland.
It's Scotland.
And
Thanks for sending me the tapes, man. I listened to the Yorkshire
yeah,
brother, and And it is the most hilarious thing. Luxury.
Yes, exactly. You mean
Oh Lord.
you had to sleep on broken glass? Yeah, that's a good bit.
We woke up an hour before we went to bed.
Yeah, that was the final.
Beat us with broken beer bottles on the bottom of the lake. Luxury. We wish we had a cardboard box.
Yeah,
Oh, too funny. Too funny.
and they would have been like 25 or not even probably I don't know like 30 when they were doing that, making fun of the
Yeah,
way
yeah,
old
yeah.
people talk.
Right, right. Well, so then the interview with with John Cleese and
Yeah,
uh,
and Michael Palin and the priests.
right, they he said, well, we were toying around with the idea, and one of the ideas was like the 12 apostles suddenly wanting to book a room in a local restaurant,
Yeah,
and well, it's just a funny little bit.
yeah.
But
Well,
what a treasure trove! I
the
saw him interviewed on Bill Maher the other day.
wait, hold on a second. The punchline to the apostles getting wanting to book a room is they all say, yeah, but can we all sit on the one side of the table?
Well, right.
Can we get a
They're
table for
like,
24
well,
and all sit on one
we can
side?
split you up. We'll have 3 tables of 4 or 4 tables of 3. No, we've all got to sit together.
One table, but all on the same side of the table, so we can't.
It all, yeah, funny stuff. Well,
Anyway, tell me about
comedy, because in the States the political news is takes up 3 full-time networks with the amazing stories that keep coming out of this Trump administration,
right.
and it is where the comedy is too. And so the enormity of the issue of what he does and what he says, and then how the media covers it to the point of exhaustion.
It totally
That
gets lost.
And all the analysis and all the money that goes with it, and every day is another set of analyses, and the comedy is there too. It's like it's fucking exhausting.
Yeah.
It's like taking up all the fucking air.
There's the only thing you can talk about or think about. Yeah.
News everywhere you go, and people blah, 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 blah. I mean, I've been watching old movies. Saw the Titans the other day, Denzel Washington and the
Yeah.
Virginia team that overcame such racial diversity, but that gets lost in the movies, which is, but
And I'm surprised that there aren't any movies yet. It's been 3 years about the 2016, campaign and what all went on there. But I guess we don't have enough information yet about.
well, you'd have to be writing a movie for which there was an obvious sequel, and convince people to go to it, even though it was half baked.
Right.
That's a movie yet to come. The story isn't to be told because the story isn't over.
It hasn't ended yet. Right.
Right, and and also, I mean, Paul Manafort's testimony. I mean, he's like this, Italian guy who like got honest. He's like, yeah, I know I liked you before. I'm going to prison for it. And now I'm telling you the truth. And you follow, you do what I do and follow the man blindly, and you too. This would just lead to the same trouble I've had. Yeah.
Well, you talk about Michael.
You
You talk about Michael Cohen, not Paul
Yeah.
Manafort. Yeah. There was a some political podcast that I don't listen to had a great title for their episode for last week. That was something. The wordplay was that we had a Cohenoscopy with Michael Cohen, examining Cohenoscopy. It's a pretty good pun.
It's good. It's good. So I didn't see the part of the hearings where one of the senator or one of the
God.
reps said, "Fire, liar, liar, pants on fire." Did you see the Saturday Night Live with
With Matt Damon for the. Oh no, I'm thinking
with Michael Cohen played by shit.
Ben Stiller.
Ben Stiller,
Yeah.
right? and and Bill Hadler playing represent Mark Meadows,
Yeah.
and and so it was perfectly set up. And you got to hand it to this television's crew. When I was watching this moment that they were
Right.
parroting, there was a woman who sat behind Michael Cohen in the audience when the chairperson
Yeah.
was making his final speech, which was very heartfelt
Yes, that was a good,
and,
good
and
speech.
powerful. But a woman behind him was nodding her head through the whole time. They had her pegged to the look,
Yeah.
to the woman, and oh God, it was. And so he says, so Mark Meadows says, I'm so upset by this. I'm so upset that I didn't even wear a coat to come to this meeting.
Right.
And they keep throwing it back to him,
Right.
and he keeps saying dumber and dumber stuff, just obfuscating, not, oh my Lord.
But like,
So
it's so sad that reality is such an easy target of parody. Like,
and this playing it out at these high levels. I mean, we're participating in an era of political history, which is the most remarkable in the country's entire history, bar none, in my view. And I've been reading and studying presidents for 40 years. It was my favorite literature that I read in grade school.
mm-hmm.
So I speak with some authority when I say that.
Yes.
These are
especially when you're that close to the
historic
mic.
times.
Yes.
These are historic times.
Wait, aren't all times historic or historical? There's a distinction there. Anyway, sorry to.
There is a distinction, but
without a difference.
Funny stuff. Comedy, the news, the comedy, everything's around. Newspapers, discussions, conversations, blah blah blah. What to talk about, what not to talk about, and the 35%, the 60 million Twitter followers.
Well, and
oh shit!
Did you cut your other arm off?
Oh, that's funny. I'm sure everybody who imagined what it was like on that operating room, watching the some corpse's hand move.
So
don't treat me badly tonight. I come to you injured both physically and emotionally.
Okay. But so, like, that's the thing that pretty much the only thing that Trump is actually good at is reality TV. Like, that's the only success that he had, where he started from just a little bit of name notoriety and actually built a TV thing because he knows how to use conflict and saying outrageous things to get people to talk about what he's just said.
He's the messaging genius of the universe. He can get his story told the way he wants it told, precisely to whom he wants it told, better than anybody.
Well,
except for perhaps there's some like German guy who got a lot of that to happen. I mean, I'm just saying.
I don't know.
I don't know what books he had by his bedside, but you know what's been stated.
Yeah, but I don't think
the ghost author.
I don't think everything that is spoken about him is what he wants to be spoken about him. But I think that he knows that just the fact that he is being spoken about is money in his pocket.
Quote, Roger Stone, the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. He learned that at the knees of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
The mob boss, Donnie. Hey, Donnie. Hey, Donnie, what are you going to do about that whore, Donnie? She's wanting money, Donnie.
Forget about it.
Pay the slut off, man. Just pay her off. Take care of it.
Yeah.
Fix it. All right. We'll pay you in installments, so we hide it on the books. Oh, really? Oh, it's a retainer. Yes, it was a retainer.
Okay.
Yes. So you can get obsessed. You can get obsessed.
Oh,
that it's
people do.
It's this narrative, and you're in the car, and it's on the radio, and you're at home, and it's on the television set, and you see newspapers in the newspapers. Watch a comedy show. It's a comedy show. The talk shows you the news. It's a blanket.
Yep.
It's a phenomena that is unique in American history.
But that was true.
Close to this.
That was true in 2014, leading up to the election, when Trump started talking about himself and just saying the most outrageous things, and every single day from when he said he wanted to be president, and even from before when he was doing the crazy birther bullshit, he knew how to get talked about, and even if it was just look at this kook that's saying
Sure.
the craziest thing.
No, there's no such thing as bad press.
Exactly. Well, he's
Period.
the living
Particularly
embodiment of that.
Particularly when you're looking at 600,000, a million, 2 million, 30 million, 35% of the freaking voting population.
Right.
And so is that enough to win an election? Yeah, it was. Electoral college anyway.
Electoral
but here's the thing. There's a yin, there's a yang. The left moves toward the center. The center has to find itself because right now the left is pardon me?
I mean, I think the left is moving for the first time in a while, moving further left than because the right is always.
I think they're claiming the left,
but they're moving.
They're claiming it, and they're trying to reach the center.
Right. Yes.
So it's better defined, and while it's grandiose, and the Green Deal and right. all the stuff that AOC is doing, this is a way to, as she intends, to rivet and say, quit talking about it. I put it in writing. Now what?
Yeah. Nice.
Different pieces of it with a different life. And so that the left is established and now is documented and looking for a plan of action. And so that means then that as they move from initial leadership and the opportunity to establish a policy agenda that addresses their most liberal leanings, they look toward the new election and they say, okay, we got the left part of the left covered.
Yeah.
Now let's think about the majority of people who are left of center, which are progressive, if not moderate, who in fact outnumber
of course
the left. But here's the thing: by defining that far left and drawing the line in legislation, some components of which are centrist,
right.
moderate centrist,
right
that's
wins.
how you establish what's acceptable, not acceptable. Somebody's got to be fucking outrageous, because this stuff that's going on is fucking crazy. And so for those people that can forward the political dialogue in great disciplined leadership that puts it in writing, the better off everybody is. The disagreement will lead to agreement in different pockets. And so if we travel that path, we will find bipartisan support.
Right.
Because the moderates and the centrists in the Democratic Party are not a whole lot different than the fiscally conservative but socially concerned
right.
Republicans on the other end of the spectrum. There's some blurry lines there.
Yeah,
but you start being concerned about quality of life for people.
But again, like to be talked about, you have to say crazy shit, and so that's why. Because now we live in a world where you want views and clicks and likes and hearts and shit, and it's so important to just come out and be in the middle and say, this side has a point and this side also has a point, and I think there's some middle ground in there. No one's going to share your video.
Listen, this country rests on the shoulders of Nancy Pelosi, who is the single most effective, powerful person I've ever seen in politics in my entire life. And I've been following this shit since I was 14 years old. I've never seen a leader better able, better equipped, with a better perspective and an absolute command of authority and delegation and discipline and message and come together in one leader. We're blessed. We're blessed.
Nice.
Perfect person for the perfect time
in
the most imperfect part of our history. And
well,
she's got him by the balls.
And all anyone can
balls that his little tiny hands. His balls are so big, his little tiny hands can't even hold his own balls.
Yeah.
That's Donald Trump. I hope you're listening, Donald. Send somebody to take care of me. Give me a message.
And
mobster.
Hi. So don't hurt your other arm.
Thanks for the advice. God, I'm glad you're here. I never would have thought of that. I would have put my other arm in a meat grinder just to see, what's it matter? I got one bad arm. Why not? Let's see if the meat grinder works.
Well, now that you're friends with the ER doctors.
Yeah, I love this doctor. I'll find out his name. We'll talk about some interesting aspects that takes us into Europe and into Palestine and the conflict and just this amazing interaction with this man that I entrusted.
With this,
the limb of my corpse. but it was so focused, so focused. I will talk a little bit more about that.
So he's not your right hand man. He's your left hand man.
And Dr. King was on the phone, and I wanted to say the King, but didn't.
Wait,
So
wait! You were talking to Dr. Martin Luther King?
No, the chief surgeon,
Okay.
chief surgeon at the hospital was on the phone, and the resident surgeon, who was my surgeon, did a examination and called him for his oversight
Right.
agreement on the procedure, which was fascinating because he told him what he saw, and his boss told him what to do, and he had just said to me before the boss called what he was going to do, and it was that.
Yep.
And then and it was complicated procedure, using a lot of terms, of course, way outside my understanding, but clearly parts of my wrist. And my doctor kept saying, yep, okay,
Sure.
got it, and hung up. And I said, well, that was reassuring. He says, yeah, just checking in. He said, it's like I told you. I said, oh yeah, it was exactly what you told me. I said, but I'm glad that you didn't, we would have been in trouble if you would have said things like, no,
No, don't
I
do
don't
that.
know what you mean. I don't know what you mean.
Why would
And
you
he
do
looked at
that,
me-
you stupid doctor?
He looked at me. He looked at me and he laughed, and he got the joke, right? And so we established that rapport. So I never stopped, in my shocky,
Right.
and then numb state,
Mm-hmm.
wanted, to make people laugh. I mean, as I was being wheeled in, and there were scads of people, and they brought me walked in, nurse went to get a wheelchair. I went to the window,
Yeah.
and I say, I'm bleeding very badly. I need to be admitted. And they started like firing up the computer to ask me questions, and they couldn't hear me apparently. And as the nurse came in with the wheelchair for me to sit in, I sat down, and she said, my nurse with the wheelchair looked at her and she said, she can't hear you. So I talk really loud and give her my name. And then I say, do we really need to be doing this? I think I'm bleeding to death. And the nurse said, we're going to do intake in the hand room. And so we went, and I had
You had to go into the hand room.
Oh, I did have a salacious thought, but I was in pain and was scared, but hyper.
Right.
And I noticed on my bandaged, tourniqueted, wet, bleeding hand, my Fitbit, which I was sure was taken off, but not. And there it was, all bloody.
Right.
And I said to one of the, people accompanying me in the wheelchair, I said, do you mind taking that off? And she said, no. And she tried to yank on it and wouldn't come off. And I said, well, maybe it isn't unlatched. And she unlatched it, and I said, you might as well take it off because you insist on wheeling me everywhere I go. I won't be getting any more steps in tonight.
Nice.
And she looked at me like, I'll just put this over here. And she had blood on her hands. And she was thinking, and I was thinking, wow, you're handling my blood and you don't know anything about my blood yet? You probably should have said, we'll let the technician do that in a minute.
Right.
That's what she should have said. I want to thank her.
I don't think they're used to getting
Requests?
quite so much character coming into the ER, bleeding all over the place, as you gave them. But
yeah, well, so the doctor. I mean, we started talking about social issues and whatnot. At one point, this doctor says these healthcare plans are good for shit. What the government pays for. My doctor saying it, and he was a Palestinian. And
I wondered why you mentioned Palestine before.
Yeah, we talked about him going home and his family and the different way that they treat the elderly in their home country, and what it's like to go back. And I was so grateful to him, and he was so modest and so capable.
Right.
I'll tell you his name next time we talk.
If you've enjoyed what you just heard, you can support us by telling a friend or sharing us on social media. All our episodes are available on our website, happyhour.fm. You can tweet at us at happyhour.fm. That's with the DOT spelled out, happyhour.dotfm. Or you can send us email at the same name, happyhourdotfm@gmail.com. Also, it would be great if you could give us a positive rating on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. See you next week.